You're in good shape. That's not bad.
It was busy.
I feel very good about that.
See, we're not doing too much.
Oh, yeah.
Reasonable margin of error.
I think so. I think so.
Considering none of us had ever touched the whatever before today, full steam ahead.
Considering I don't think I ever want to touch any of that. We put a lot of money into
Okay, timer's off, so we'll get by. So.
You can do it.
You want to click it again there, Jennifer? Yeah. 15. Okay, that's good. Okay. Almost. Let's see.
5.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm only 5 seconds off now. That's fine.
Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, July 17th, 2018, meeting of Middletown City Council to order. If you please stand and join me in a moment of meditation and pledge allegiance to the flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vittori.
Here.
Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon. Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here. I'll entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Moon.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
All right. Our first item this evening is a presentation of Abilities First, recognizing their 60th anniversary. I'd like to invite them down to the podium. Robin, thanks for joining us. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's certainly great to be able to recognize the great work of Abilities First here in Middletown on all the things they do throughout the city and the lives they touch and reach. They have a great impact, and they're celebrating their 60th year. We've recognized a number of businesses and nonprofits, and to think 60 years in business and operation and the number of lives they've touched is just pretty impressive. So on behalf of City Council, we have this proclamation to present. Whereas people with disabilities should have the opportunity to achieve their unique potential and have an extraordinary quality of life. For the last 60 years, Abilities First has worked to empower people with disabilities to achieve their potential and is the region's first choice resource for people with disabilities and their families. And whereas inside every child and adult is the ability for growth, and Abilities First has a family of services helping the needs of families from birth through life. Abilities First serves children with autism in the Autism Learning Center, including a 4+1 preschool program. Abilities First serves children with disabilities and typical children in the Integrated Early Childhood Learning Center and provides speech, occupational, and physical therapy opportunities. And whereas Abilities First provides an intensive pediatric therapy program, a residential care center, adult day programs, and employment habitation for people with disabilities. Abilities First transform the lives of children and adults with disabilities to impact families, communities, and businesses in Butler, Warren, Hamilton, Preble, Greene, and Clark counties in Ohio. And whereas all people living up to their full potential create productive citizens, and to that end, a better community for all. August 2nd, 2018 is the 60th anniversary of the Abilities First Articles of Incorporation. Now therefore I, Lawrence Mulligan, Mayor of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, do hereby proclaim August 2nd, 2018 as Abilities First Day in the City of Middletown. And it's an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the people served by Abilities First, the employees, citizens, and professional partners of the organization who diligently work to make Middletown a unique and vibrant place to work, live, learn, and play. Congratulations, Robin. Appreciate all your great work. Would you like to offer a few comments on what's going on at Abilities First?
Well, sure. Thank you. Just briefly, thank you all. On behalf of all of us at Abilities First and all the individuals and families we serve, I'd like to thank you for this proclamation, and thank you for being such a good partner. We couldn't be successful and here 60 years later if it wasn't for the support of our city and our community. So we will display this proudly, I can tell you that. And you are all invited to our 60th birthday party on August 2nd, where we'll officially celebrate our 60 years here in the Middletown community. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. All right, next up, we have a couple guests from the Public Library for Midpoint to talk about their 2019 tax budget. So, Travis and Deborah, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Deborah Preston, the Midpoint Library Systems Fiscal Officer, and I'm joined by Travis Spouts. He's our director. And I'm here to talk about the 2019 budget, but before I do, I'm going to turn it over to Travis, who's going to talk about, in general, all the great things that have been happening at the library since the last time we were here.
Great. Good evening.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us. I know that a staff member of mine, our branch manager, Stella Tompolitis, updated you on our 2017 stats, so I won't go back over those again, but just a few things to say what's happening this year. So first thing I want to say is thank you for letting us sponsor your fireworks event. It was a great event. I got to see several of you there, and it was a great fun. Things that are happening at the library. For the third year in a row, we are doing our summer lunch service where we're feeding children and families from noon to 1 every day during the week. So far this year, 4 weeks in, we've served nearly 400 meals to kids. So that's a great service we're happy to provide. Bookmobile, we had a new bookmobile hit the road again, first time since 1988. And we have regularly stopping at 22 different schools around our service area, 16 community stops. And it's amazing, they've seen about 14,000 people on the bookmobile just in the first half of the year. Speaking of bookmobile, we have a garage project, 440 North Verity, where we're working with Tim Young, the building that's next to Pullman Tire. We just approved at our board meeting before this the construction project for that. So that will be the permanent home for the bookmobile, and we'll also have some staff there too that can pull in, run in, restock the bookmobile, and head back out to schools or wherever they're going. So that's exciting. The construction starts in August this year. And finally, we're also excited about our Liberty branch that is going to be in Liberty Center in Foundry Hall, right next to the children's play area. It's about a 3,500 square foot storefront. We're excited about that. That project started construction this week. So we're busy, and we're hoping to reach even more of our customers in our service area in the years to come. I'll turn it back over to Deborah then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so turning our attention to the 2019 budget, you have the budget in your packet, and that outlines our revenues and expenditures. And by the way, just for review, I'm bringing it forth here because you're our taxing authority. So being the taxing authority, it has to come to here, and then when your approval comes, then we will be sending it down to the Butler County Auditor for their approval. So it's kind of a three-step process. Our board, you, and then the Butler County. So it's kind of the process. The 2019 revenues for our general fund total $8,709,500. And the expenditures will be $8,354,250. And as you know, the general fund is the by far and away the largest fund that we get revenues and expend out of. I've included all of the other smaller funds for your review, and I don't want to sit here and read the actual document to you, and I know you've had time to review it, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Any initial questions from council? I just had one. Could you maybe comment? I noticed from 2016 to 17, the total disbursements declined, and then they're returning back up to the 8 million $4 level. Any particular reason for the drop in 2017 actuals?
16 was when we added our Monroe location.
Okay.
17, we also moved Trenton from a rental space to the building that we purchased.
Okay.
So there were 2 building projects in 16.
Okay.
Additionally, we used to transfer money from our general fund to our capital improvement fund to the tune of $1.5 million to $2 million a year, and we've suspended that practice. When you transfer it, that becomes an expenditure and also becomes a revenue for the capital improvement fund. Okay. So if that's not happening, it looks like in addition to the building projects, it's a larger drop.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else?
I think that'll do it. Thank you for coming down this evening. Appreciate the updates.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing for the 2019 tax budget for Midpoint Library. Is there anyone to speak in favor of the proposed tax budget? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask if there's anyone to speak in opposition to the 2019 Midpoint tax budget. Okay, hearing none, I'll declare that public hearing closed. And we'll move on to our other public hearings this evening. We have 4 of them. And Ashley Combs, our planning director, will be up here to tee these up. So,
Good evening. How's everybody tonight? Okay, so first up for you, there is the text amendment of the Planning and Zoning Development Code. This has to do with our review fees, accessory structures, uses, procedures, and definitions. Okay. All right, so first up, I'm going to go through everything, and then if you have questions, we'll go back. So first up is the zoning fees. So Middletown has some of the lowest zoning fees, and we've not updated those in well over 10 years. Comparing, we compared our fees to the city of Monroe, Westchester, Butler County, Warren County, Trenton, and Franklin Township. So there's a lot going on with this blue Excel sheet in front of you, but notably, I'm going to say what changed because all of the things listed in the proposed did not change. So the zone change fee is increasing by 200. That is by far lower than 4 of the 6 places that we looked. And it's important to note with the zone change, that's the most impactful thing for planning and zoning that you can do to a property. It's changing all the uses and what can go there. Preliminary development plan, there was no change. Final development plan, no change in fees. Minor development plan, no change. Conditional use, there was an increase of 100 to specifically commercial. Variances, no change for residential, it'd still be 150. There would be an increase of an additional $50 for 200. So if a commercial use came in and wanted a variance, it would be 200. Commercial zoning permit, 200. This originally was 40. We would still be lower than our surrounding communities. I have to note that it takes a substantial amount of staff time to review these. Residential, originally 30, so this would range from 100 to a cent per additional square footage, and it would have a not to exceed of 1,000. Accessory structures, no change in fees. A sign permit, increase of $10 in fees. Lot splits, no change. Home occupation would now require $30. Historic commission fee for an applicant would be $25. It was $0 previously. This would just help pay for those surrounding property mailed notices that we do. Zoning verification letters, 75. We didn't have anything in place before. We do about 20 to 30 of those a year, and those also take staff time if you have to go over to our Sunset Park storage and find information from 30 years back for a property. Moving on. Mixed use buildings. Previously, for our mixed use, so it used to be the gross floor area of dwelling shall not exceed a gross floor area of 40% of the building in B1, B2, and B3 districts. Those are our business zoning districts. The Planning Commission recommends to you that 40% be removed. And an example of that would be that, well, I should say, the dwelling units now shall not exceed the gross floor area of the entire mixed-use building. So a good example would be before, if someone wanted to have commercial on the bottom floor and residential, they could not do that because you could only do 40%. Now you could have your commercial and your residential taking up that entire floor. That's just a quick example. Industrial uses and services. So and our East End is our premier location in Middletown. It's recommended that industrial uses for manufacturing and production specifically be now classified as conditional uses and require Planning Commission review and approval. These are very impactful uses potentially, and I think it's important, as well as the Planning Commission thinks it's important for them to review and make sure that we're meeting our standards such as light, noise, odor, glare, and meeting those standards. It's just to protect that area of Middletown. R1 and R2. In the previous zoning code, livestock and greenhouses were permitted in both the R1 and R2. Now they're not permitted in the R1. We're just asking that that be allowed again in the R1 and R2 because those are Middletown's lowest home density zoning districts, meaning they have much bigger lots and could meet our standards of 300 feet from a dwelling. Next, please.
We're gonna move on?
Oh, wait, just kidding. No, you're good. Okay, I moved on. All right, so the next would be city council voting, specifically with text amendments and map amendments. It is proposed to remove the requirement of a supermajority requiring 4 voting members to 3. The reason for this is just creating consistency among all of our boards. We have majority. Churches, specifically in our business commercial, we've had many issues in the past with churches in our strip centers, business strip centers specifically, and we recommend that these be considered classified as a conditional use that would just require that they come in and are approved by Planning Commission to meet specifically an issue we've had is parking, to make sure. One example being where, I don't know if anyone specifically knows where Paul Nenny, down there on University, there's a strip center there. We've had inquiries about churches there, and there's not ample parking. So it's just kind of protecting all of those other surrounding businesses that utilize that parking as well as patrons. That's just a quick example for you. Next, residential in our BC business zoning districts. Specifically, the BC is on our east end. So staff recommends that the following residential uses be permitted in the BCF, BCO, and BCR zoning districts. Multifamily dwelling, apartment building with 9 to 12 units. Dwelling multifamily apartment building with 4 to 8 units. Dwelling multifamily attached units up to 4 units. And dwelling units above non-residential uses. Staff envisions that the East End could welcome development similarly to the Green and Liberty Center, with residential living integrated with residential and office uses. Next, zoning permit time limit. 6-month time limit proposed for issued permits. Currently, we do not have a time limit. Historic districts for certificate of appropriateness. Certificate of appropriateness will only be required for structures located in the city's designated historic districts or a structure designated on the National Register. Fences. Since the implementation of the new zoning code, staff have received over 10 requests for new fences and have had issues pertaining to the required 25-foot setback from existing fences. Surrounding communities, specifically Monroe, Beaver Creek, Trenton, Mason, and Liberty Township, do not have a setback requirement. Staff recommended, and Planning Commission also recommends, that this requirement be removed from the code. At the last Board of Zoning Appeals meeting held on May 2nd, 2018, the board granted a 0-foot setback for a new fence. That concludes staff report.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Combs? All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone to speak in favor of the proposed text amendment for zoning code. Anyone to speak in favor of? Anyone to speak in opposition to the proposed text amendments? All right, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and move on to our next one. Ms. Combs?
Okay, our next is a map amendment for a zone change request by Bob Gage for a total of 3 properties located on the southwest corner of Roosevelt Boulevard and Bonita Drive. The applicant is requesting a zone change from R4P, attached residential zoning, to B1, neighborhood business district. For the Butler County Auditor, the properties are a total of 0.689 acres. If approved, the applicant is proposing to build a 7,500 square foot retail store, specifically Dollar General. This map amendment will require your review and decision. Next, please. Okay, so it's important to note that this map amendment was recommended for denial to City Council by the Planning Commission on May 9th, 2018. The Commission agreed that the proposed zone change does not meet the intent of the Master Plan and Development Code and would create spot zoning. This here is a picture that you're looking at the intersection of Roosevelt Avenue and Bonita. Next, please. Here is the zoning map. As you can see, the property is outlined in red. It is right in the middle of R4 zoning. I'd like to call out that R4 zoning is our attached residential, but this property in particular has a P added to it, which means it's a part of a planned development that allows for both residential and office uses. That concludes staff report.
Any questions, council? All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing regarding this map amendment case 318. Does anyone want to speak in favor of the proposed map amendment? Does anyone want to speak in opposition to the proposed map amendment recommendation? All right, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and go on to our third.
It's okay that I'm still standing up here.
That's fine.
Opening.
I know one's moving behind you. I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Okay, the next is another map amendment. This is for zone changes by applicant Ron Decker on behalf of Oakley Property Group for a total of 5 properties located at the intersection of Clark Street and Plum Street from I-2 Industrial Zoning District to R4 Attached Zoning District. For the Butler County Auditor, the properties are a total of 1.3 acres. If approved, the applicant is planning a new housing development at this property, and this is being forwarded to you as a part of our Middletown Development Code requirement. Next, please. Okay, also a part of this request is an alley vacation. The alley vacation is approximately 132 feet long and 15 feet wide, 0.05 acres. If approved, that alley will be vacated and consolidated with the surrounding property for this new housing development. As you can see here, if you're driving towards the city building on Reinhardt's Boulevard, a part of this development plan, the 2 existing houses in the existing apartment building. Next, please. This is the picture of the alley. So if you're on Clark Street coming back towards Reinhardt's, there's the 2 existing homes that I mentioned in the existing apartment building. There's an existing alley there where the parking lot is currently. Next, please. Here is just an overview. As you can see, the darker gray box at the bottom is that alley vacation, and then the should be red. Light, I think, is kind of blinding me here, but that's the rest of the development for the zone change. 5 properties total. And then here is a 3D rendering. I apologize, it's not in color. It looks really great in color, but it looks great in black and white too. But here are the proposed townhomes. So here again, you see that they are proposing to update the existing homes and facade of the 2 homes at the bottom here, and then the existing apartment. It's proposed to be a gated community, and then those townhomes there, again, would be new in the back. I believe it's 8 townhomes. That concludes staff report.
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing regarding map amendment case 4-18. Is there anyone to speak in favor of proposed map amendment? Anyone want to speak in opposition to? All right, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and go on to our last one.
Thank you.
Or nope, we got 2 more. 2 more.
Okay.
All of the alley vacation, okay.
All right, the last thing I have for, sorry, I presented a report since it was the same project.
Okay, so, well, we've got a separate public hearing for the alley vacation, so I better open that one too, just to be legal. I don't want to get thrown in jail, right? So,
We'll keep you.
so with that, I will open the public hearing regarding the right-of-way vacation case 2-18. Does everyone want to speak in favor of the proposed alley vacation? Does everyone want to speak in opposition to the proposed alley vacation? All right, hearing none, we'll close that. And now we can go on to our last one, so that's all right.
Okay, the last zone change I have for you is a zone change request by the city of Middletown for 40 properties located near Town Boulevard between Roosevelt Boulevard and Hendrickson Road from O2 Office Park to B2 Community Business District. For the Warren County Auditor, the properties are a total of 207.92 acres. The request for rezoning is regarding consistency, currently uses with the city's recently adopted development code. Next, please. So the proposed map amendments were recommended for approval to City Council by Planning Commission on June 13, 2018. The Commission agreed that the zone change would not create spot zoning is consistent with the existing land uses in the area. Here you're at the intersection of State Route and Town Boulevard. Next, please. All right, this is just a really, I apologize for how, zoomed out the map is, but it's a substantial amount of land. It's hopefully it's easy for you to see, black outlined, the O2. So the reason for this zone change is, the major reason why it's needed is currently there's a lot of inconsistencies. Specifically, most importantly, restaurants are located, there's many located within O2. And now those are conditional uses that require review and approval by Planning Commission. Even if they expanded, you know, you're expanding on non-conforming use. Luckily, we've not had anyone actually come in, but those would now require planning commission approval. And also, it's important to note that hotels and gas stations are now prohibited uses. And there are at least, I believe, 4 hotels, and one recently approved to be constructed, Holiday Inn Express.
Those are prohibited under the current, so.
Yes, the
not
new
under-
zoning as of March 1st.
Okay.
That concludes staff report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council on that? With that, I'll open up our last public hearing regarding map amendment case 5-18. Is there going to speak in favor of the proposed map amendment? All right, hearing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition to the proposed map amendment? All right, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and we'll move on with our agenda. We've received no comment cards this evening, so we can move right to Mr. Atkins' reports.
Good evening,
Mr. Atkins.
Mayor and Council. Just a quick update. Scott Tadich in Public Works asked me to announce again, it's been on our webpage and everywhere else, but we will be holding an informational meeting July 19th, this Thursday at 6 p.m. at Sunset Park for the Green Infrastructure Project as part of our long-term control plan. It will be held at the park, assuming the weather is good, and as of right now, it's supposed to be sunny. If that does happen to change and the weather gets to be thunderstorming, we'll move it to City Council chambers. But it's Thursday at 6 o'clock at Sunset Park. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. With that, we can move to our consent agenda this evening. Ms. Gank?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the city council minutes from July 3rd, 2018, to receive and file an oath of office for Audrey Morris, and to confirm the personnel appointments of Joseph Leitz to the position of patrol officer, Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, and Jamie Sturgill to the position of treatment plant operator, Public Works and Utilities, Division of Water Treatment.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the issues and actions as listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Hey, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
All right, we have one motion item to receive, file, and adopt the 2019 tax budget for the Midpoint Library. This was the subject of our public hearing and presentation earlier this evening. Any other questions or comments from council? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to receive, file, and adopt that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to our council comments this evening. Mr. Mulligan?
Thank you, Your Honor. First, just want to offer my thanks to the organizers of the 4th of July parade, the volunteers and the participants and the crowd that came out to watch us on a rather hot morning, but it was fun to see everyone, and thanks to the city staff that put time in the night before for the July 3rd fireworks and festival. It was all very well attended and well done, and really made for a nice holiday for the city, so thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Bohannon?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I'd like to also pass on my thanks for a great weekend with the fireworks and the parade. And also this upcoming weekend is the Balloon Fest. Hopefully the weather cooperates. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a dry one, but we might get lucky. So I hope everybody can show up. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Vittori?
I had a great time at the parade and the fireworks, and we actually got compliments on the fireworks. I think maybe they were a little longer this year, just long enough to make everyone happy. I thought they were terrific. And then they kept going. It was kind of like, I thought that was great. And I wanted to say how great the library is. I've been going there with my kids the last 2 weeks, and it's really a great experience. They have a whole summer rock star program. They do a really good job over there. So I'm sorry that they left because I wanted them to know how great I thought the programming was.
Well, thank you. I too would extend my thanks and appreciation to all the city staff. I sent a note to Nicole Clark, and she was kind of the organizer, I think, on the city side, and led a team from the city. But really thought it was a great effort on the 3rd, and the activities that continued on the 4th. A lot of volunteer efforts went into that too. A lot of it was above and beyond the normal call of duty. It was a pretty hot day on the 4th, and lots of great things going on. But certainly do appreciate that. And also want to express my appreciation. There was another housing committee meeting this past Thursday that Mr. Atkins led and presented. Again, making great progress with that committee. Appreciate the work and the insights from the committee. There's some good discussion as we're working through these, dozen or so kind of major issues that we're looking at with our housing and ways to address that. So appreciate the work of the committee and Mr. Atkins and staff to kind of pull that together. And then also really enjoyed the activities downtown First Friday, the ice cream social event I think that DMI pulled together. Was a great fun, nice warm summer day, so that worked out well. And great to see folks out and about with some kids. And I heard from Jeff Payne they gave out over 350 pieces of ice cream, so those required stops at different stores. And some of us just stopped at some of the adult beverages and just stopped with that and not the ice cream. But it was a fun time and good to see everyone out. And lastly, I know we're going to get a staff report on this, but we've got some legislation to consider, not this evening, but at the next meeting. But I'd like to encourage my council members, and I'll share these comments with you in an email, but we've got upcoming legislation for the road improvement levy. And support of this legislation will allow the voters of Middletown to provide a direct input on the conditions of our roads, something I think is very important to get their input. Unlike legislation at the state and federal level, voting for this legislation, we have the opportunity to put this in front of the voters of Middletown to allow them to decide if roads are indeed a priority for them. Since my involvement started with the city back in the Financial Oversight Committee back in 2004, that's 14 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But the roads have been a real area of concern. I hear that repeatedly. I think many of us do. And really, since that time, I think the city's made a good effort towards putting what available funding we have towards the roads. But again, that funding's been pretty limited. We've made good use of our general fund dollars as well as state and federal matching funds and some limited grant funding that we've had through those years. But really, we just have some limited resources to really fully dedicate to address the improvements and repaving efforts. And previous councils did allow citizens to provide input into other priority issue, namely public safety. In my time as mayor, we've approved two levies. One was a 5-year levy for public safety. The other renewed that as a permanent levy for public safety. And again, I think it was an important process to let the citizens decide how best to spend those dollars, and those were widely supported by and large by many of the voters. And while I'm certainly not a proponent of higher taxes, recognize that the financial landscape has changed quite a bit over the last 11 years that I've been mayor, and even more recently with the local government funding being eliminated at the state level, with really the improvements in gas mileage at the federal level that's limited the federal gas tax receipts. And those aren't likely to be restored anytime soon. So I think we're dealing with a funding gap that will exist for some time. And then there's also competition. There are more interstate lane miles than ever before, and those needs are really higher and demand higher attention from the federal level. So for our local roads, I think we need to come up with some creative solutions. And while other cities are at a 2% tax or more, and some have a reduced credit for citizens, we're still below that level, and moving to 2% is something that will keep us, I think, competitive and certainly in the marketplace in terms of taxes for those that look at it. And looking back at taxes in the 1980s, the voters did decide to limit and essentially reduce the amount contributed to capital improvements through a reduction or through, a transfer instead of a tax increase at that time. And really, since that time, some 40 years ago, we've seen a steady decline. It didn't happen, all at once. It wasn't a cliff by any means, but there was a steady decline in the amount allocated towards those capital improvements and resurfacing efforts and things like that. And I really believe we've kind of reached a tipping point with the kind of the end of useful life for a lot of these lane miles. And I think if we're able to act now in a comprehensive and aggressive manner, we can really do a lot to advance our cause. And as we see from staff, the 0.25% income tax increase would create about $3.2 million in additional revenue. And over 10 years, if we were to bond some of that, we could really make a big impact in an upfront manner over the first 2 to 3 years and really get a lot of paving done to really extend those deteriorating roads another 25 or 30 years into some real useful dollars, and we'll see that spent. That should be what estimate of 140 to 150 lane miles of the 650 or so that we have to repave. It's a meaningful percentage, I think, of the lane miles. And then I think certainly maintaining the discipline of a percentage of our general fund dedicated to roads is certainly an important and worthwhile cause, but ultimately, the dollars we have in our general fund, as we've seen through a number of budgets that I've been involved in, are somewhat limited. So I just encourage council to take a close look at this and to really consider it and get some input in terms of the approach and best way to put this forward in front of the voters, and again, encourage them to decide. And with that, we can move to our legislation this evening. Ms. Cohen?
Thank you, sir. We have 3 matters we're asking to be considered as an emergency, so I'd ask for a motion to waive charter requirements for multiple readings and 30 days to enactment regarding Resolution R 2018-13, Ordinance O 2018-42, and Ordinance O 2018-43.
I move that we waive the charter provisions regarding reading on 2 separate days and declare Resolution R 2018-13, R 2018-14, and Ordinance 2018-43 an emergency measure and read one time only.
Would ask for correction. It's not going to be Resolution 2018-14. It will be Ordinance number 2018-42.
42, yeah.
And 43.
42, okay.
Yeah, 2 ordinances and 1 resolution.
Yes.
Right, yes, okay, just so we're clear. Okay, we had that on the agenda, so, okay,
Second?
thank you. Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Okay, the first matter will be Resolution R 2018-13, a resolution declaring the necessity of repairing certain sidewalks, curbs, gutters, and driveway aprons in the city of Middletown, requiring that abutting property owners repair the same and declaring an emergency.
Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
We had a presentation on this last time. Any other questions or comments from council?
Just the one question, just to piggyback onto your comments and everything. The time frame for payback on these curbs and stuff from the residents, is that set at 5 years right now?
I apologize. I don't know.
Don't know?
I don't know.
Well, speaking from my firsthand experience, yes, it's 5 years. So,
Okay.
my assessment was at least, unless they charge the mayor extra or something.
Okay.
I think generally it's 5 years. And again, I know that issue was addressed to council, and I encourage staff to maybe look at levels at such that might be spread out over a longer term to allow for
there's nothing-
an easier repayment.
There's nothing set in stone by the state or something that says it has to be done in a certain length of time, paid back in a certain length of time?
Not that,
I don't believe
I
so.
don't believe so.
The biggest cost, I think, is through the county, because they do charge a percentage, I think, based, interest charge, I think, or something like that. That's,
Okay.
but, yeah, so, okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Okay, number 2 is Resolution R 2018-14, a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept and receive aviation grant funding from the Ohio Department of Transportation, Office of Aviation for the airport runway lighting project. I believe this is the second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Any presentation on this last time? All right, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Next matter is Ordinance O 2018-42, an ordinance setting forth municipal services that will be provided to 3.089 acres located in Franklin Township, Warren County, Ohio, as required by Section 709.023 of the Ohio Revised Code, and declaring an emergency.
Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Atkins, I know we've seen this previously, but this
You have
is a
seen this.
new,
There were some issues with the map and how the property was laid out. Those have been corrected. It's now ready for your action. This property will be annexed in Middletown, subject to our taxes and zoning. All the property owners have agreed to the annexation, and we are required to pass an ordinance declaring what services we will provide to the annexed property. Will have to be by emergency so we can meet the ORC sections regarding this. We could object, but frankly, there's no legal course for us to do it, and it's ready for action tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council? With that, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Number 4 is Ordinance O 2018-43, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the Second Amendment of a lease of certain real property to New Par and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, we have a ongoing lease with Verizon They are asking to extend that lease. Staff and the law department have both looked at it and believe it's a good deal for the city. If you pass it by emergency tonight, there's a $20,000 bonus to the city, which we'd like to have, and we are recommending it for approval tonight.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right, hearing none. Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Milligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Number 5 is Resolution R 2018-15, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2018, involving the general fund and the nuisance abatement fund, and this is a first reading.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, these are two different items. The first one that is for the Division of Police. They have received donations of $400 towards the Honor Guard, $250 towards National Night Out, and $1,070 from their Jeep and Eats event. They would like to go ahead and put those back into use for other items, for uniforms and professional services, and they will need to have those appropriated to do that. The other one is a $500,000 move from our revolving loan fund, which has been closed for probably 10 years now. We had one time had a revolving loan fund that did renovations for lower income families. As we had gotten into the recession, we were actually getting to a place where we were having to foreclose on people's houses that we had renovated. It was a bad program and a bad idea. We shut it down. It's been accumulating interest and payments. Now that we are looking at several larger demolitions, not only the studio, but also the old Montgomery Wards building and potentially Lincoln School. We're looking with the school district on how we might partner on that. We're going to go ahead and authorize this to go back into play, and if we spend it this year, we'll bring it to you, the individual contracts. If we don't, it'll deappropriate, and we'll incorporate it into the 19 budget if we need it later.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right, thank you.
The next matter is ordinance O 2018-44, an ordinance amending various sections of the Middletown Development Code of the Middletown Codified Ordinances, and this is the first reading.
Okay, it was subject to our public hearing this evening. Any other questions from council? All right.
The next matter is number 7, ordinance O 2018-45, an ordinance vacating a portion of the alley on Clark Street near Reinhardt Boulevard, also a first reading.
Okay, that was the subject for public hearing as well. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Legislation 8 is ordinance O 2018-46, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for 5 parcels located at the intersection of Clark Street and Plum Street from I-2 General Industrial District to R4 Attached Residential District.
Also the subject of public hearing. Any other questions or comments?
And finally, we have ordinance O 2018-47, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for 40 parcels located near Town Boulevard between Roosevelt Boulevard and Hendrickson Road from O2 Office Park District to B2 Community Business District.
Okay. That was our public hearing as well. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay.
Number 10 is ordinance O 2018-48, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for 3 parcels located at the southwest corner of Roosevelt Boulevard and Bonita Drive from R4P Attached Residential District to B1 Neighborhood Business District, first reading.
Okay, and okay, that's, yeah, that was a public hearing. I just want to check on the writing for that. Was that if we vote in favor of it, are we supporting the planning commission resolution? Or are we, is it to overturn that?
The planning commission's recommendation was for us to deny.
Right, to deny it, so,
No on this.
okay, so it's written, okay, so it's not written to
To
overturn.
vote no
right.
on this piece of legislation would be to support with the
Support it,
planning
yeah.
commission.
Supporting their, okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Okay, thank you.
Number 11 is ordinance O 2018-49, an ordinance to impose additional 1/4% income tax effective January 1, 2019 for a period of 10 years to be used solely for the construction, repair, improvement, and maintenance of streets and roads in the city and appurtenances thereto, including principal of and interest on bonds or notes issued to for any of those purposes, and to declare an emergency. We're not requesting any action until August the 7th.
Okay.
Just be aware that both this one and the next one, to make our August 8th deadline to get it on the ballot, it will require 4 votes from council.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. Any questions or comments from council? And our last item this evening?
The last matter is Resolution R 2018-16, a resolution directing the Board of Elections of Butler County and Warren County to place upon the ballot at the general election to be held November 6, 2018, the question of approving an ordinance to enact Section 891.012.1 of the codified ordinances of the City of Middletown to impose an additional 1/4% income tax effective January 1, 2019 for a period of 10 years to be used solely for the construction, repair, improvement, and maintenance of streets and roadways in the city and appurtenances thereto, including principal of and interest on bonds or notes issued for any of these purposes, and declaring an emergency.
Okay. Which And with that, the last time we have is an executive session, so I need a motion of the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair or competitive bargaining advantage. And also under the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
So moved.
Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
All right, and with that, we'll be in recess until our first meeting in August. I believe it's going to be August 7th, 2018 in these chambers. Thank you all, and a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.